Is Sony misrepresenting some of their games by calling them remasters? And at the very least, are they taking advantage of some gamers by charging a premium price for these titles? So, I've got a question. We know that a lot of the games that we play are a lot of times multi-platform. That means that you can buy them and play them on PS4, Xbox, or PC. And they're the same game on all of those platforms. You play the story, it ends the same exact way. But there usually is some sort of difference when it comes to the consoles versus the PC. You can take a game that's 1080p, 30 frames per second on consoles, port it over to the PC, and a lot of times you can play that game on PC at a higher resolution, sometimes 4K, and at a higher frames per second. Sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's unlocked, so it could go up to 120 or whatever. Occasionally, they'll even throw in some extra effects and technologies not found on the console version, so you could see particles and details that you just won't find on the console version. But whether you add in these extra effects, or if you're just upping the resolution or frame rate, do we call these PC games remasters? Of course not. They're ports. When you think of actually remastering something, you think about them taking a film like The Wizard of Oz and digitally retouching up every frame and improving the audio. When you look at a game like Halo 2 Anniversary, there's little doubt when you compare the screens to the original that this is truly a remastered game. Cutscenes have been completely reworked, audio re-recorded, graphics enhanced. When you look at videos of the upcoming Gears of War Ultimate Edition, same thing there. They went in, completely reworked some of these cutscenes entirely. They've updated the graphics. They've updated the audio. They've even tweaked and added content in from Gears 2 and Gears 3. And when you look at that, there's little question that this is a remastered version compared to the original. And they're going to sell all that for $40. You get multiplayer, you get the remastered content, all for $40. Now, when you look at what Sony has offered so far on the PS4, and they've, put remastered in the title, I mean, I still have yet to see a game that I feel has been truly remastered. The Last of Us Remastered came out only a year after the original did, and the biggest difference was resolution and frames per second. Now, it did include all the DLC, which you can get a lot of times in Game of the Year editions. And if you recall, they originally stated that that was going to be $60 for that one game. Even though at the time you could have bought the PS3 version for half that price. But fans did give Sony a pretty good earful and gave them backlash, and everybody was saying, look, Microsoft actually remastered Halo. They gave you 4 games in one, hundreds of multiplayer maps, content that you couldn't play on the 360, and they only charged $60, so you're asking us to charge the same exact price as what they did? So Sony eventually lowered the price, and they offered it up for $50 at launch. When you look at this week's God of War 3 Remastered, again, you compare the screens to PS3, the biggest difference is resolution and frames per second. And it's just one game. And on the PS3, you can buy the Saga Pack, which includes all the God of War games, for around $15. And those include God of War 1, 2, 3, and all the DLC. Yet, this remastered edition for just this one game that looks a lot like the PS3 version is being sold for $40. And nothing that I've seen makes it look like it's a truly remastered game that was put out 5 years ago. And I think it's funny because some are claiming, they're like, well, that's just a testament for how great the PS3 version was. And I'm just like, do you not hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? I think it's more of a testament to how poor of a value it is. And then you've got the Nathan Drake collection coming up, which we haven't seen or heard much from it, but there was a video earlier today that claimed that it was the remastered edition. And they weren't comparing it to the original, so it's hard to say how big of a difference it actually was. But even Sony fans over at NeoGAF were talking about how they weren't impressed. And again, this is a collection that's had content taken away from it. So if you played this on the PS3, there's a chance that you played more game than what you're going to get in this new version because they stripped away the multiplayer completely. So for me, if you compare Xbox's remasters, where they've gone through and actually reworked the game and actually remastered it, added new content, and still offered it for a reasonable price, and you compare it to Sony, who seems to be just porting over the games and then using the word remaster to sell them, taking away content in some cases, and still charging a premium price, to me it sometimes feels that for the players is just a slogan with no real meaning behind it. So my question to you is this. Do you think some of these games should be called remastered if the biggest difference is only an upped resolution and frames per second? And if we're going to call these games remastered, then shouldn't we also call all PC games from now on remasters? Or do you feel like some of this is just a cash grab? That does it for me, The Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.